Hey everyone, it's November 11th, and that means that if today's your birthday, you share with Norwegian-American serial killer Belle Gunness, who may have killed as many as 40 victims in the late 18 and early 1900s, and that is her right up there. Born in Norway in 1859 as Brynhild Paulsdatter Storsteth, Gunness was the youngest of 8 children. As a young woman, she worked on a large farm and saved her money for 3 years to pay for a voyage to the United States. She emigrated to the U.S. in 1881 and assumed the American name Belle to try to fit in, ultimately moving to Chicago where her sister had moved a few years prior. She stood out. She was 6 feet tall and 200 pounds, which was exceptionally large for a woman in the 1880s, and she first married a man in 1884, opening a confectionery store with her husband. The business failed and mysteriously burned down, giving them a nice insurance settlement. The couple had 4 children, 2 of whom died in infancy, displaying symptoms that matched those of victims of poison. Her husband died in 1900, and since she had 2 insurance policies on him, she received a nice windfall. His relatives claimed that Gunness had poisoned her husband, causing an inquest to be ordered, but it's unclear as to whether the body was checked for arsenic. She used her inheritance to purchase a farm in Indiana, and in 1902 she married Peter Gunness, taking his name. Just a week later, his infant daughter died of unknown causes while she was alone with her new stepmother. In December of that year, her husband also died from a tragic accident that caused a heavy object to fall on his head from a high shelf. A coroner investigated, but again, nothing came from it. Now living with multiple children, some her own and some her stepkids, one teenager went missing, and Gunness told neighbors that the girl had left for Los Angeles to attend a Lutheran college. The rest were no longer seen as she began placing ads looking for companionship, promising her hand in marriage to any man who would pay off her mortgage. She met many lonely, wealthy men, and the first disappeared a week after coming to visit from Minnesota, having brought $1,000 in cash. The next fled the home after a strange incident of awaking to find Gunness standing over his bed. None of the dozens of other men who came to visit ever left alive. Gunness had a worker who'd become obsessed with her after they had a tryst, and she fired him, but he kept returning to the farm, so she sought legal protection. She wasn't sure about how much he knew about her suitors and children, and he later told investigators that she had asked him to set fire to her farmhouse while her children were inside. He did just that in 1908, and in the ruins, workmen found 4 human skeletons, one of which was identified as Gunness. Her worker-slash-lover confessed to having murdered Gunness and her children with an axe before setting fire to the place. Investigators began digging on the farm and found the remains of more than 40 men and children, indicating that she had killed many of her children and dozens of suitors over the previous 7 years, and almost certainly murdered her first husband in 1900. Her former employee was arrested for arson and murder, being charged with the death of those in the farmhouse when he set it ablaze. He was simply convicted of arson, but not murder, and some reports indicate that the body identified as Gunness was 5 inches shorter and about 50 pounds lighter than she. She was spotted across the country over the next several years, and her home became a tourist attraction, much like Elvis after his death. The body believed to be Belle Gunness was exhumed in 2007 to compare DNA samples, but they were unable to confirm if it was her or not. Maybe she did get away, but it seems likely that Gunness met a similar fate to her own victims, being killed by someone who didn't respect her life. If this is your birthday, I hope you have a great day. Leave me a comment so I can wish you a happy birthday. If you know someone whose birthday it is today, send them this video so they can find out all about their birthday twin. And to Belle Gunness, I say, happy birthday, you bastard. By the way, I bought this shirt when I went to Norway about a year ago and saw one of the greatest pieces of art I've ever seen in my entire life, a giant man fighting a bunch of babies. And you should all go to Norway. It's a wonderful place, and I highly recommend it.